Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video. Last week we had, unfortunately, our third blank in a row with Erling Haaland, and it did ruin a nice little run that we had for the first 5 game weeks of no blanks, which has now been ruined basically. We're now down to a 50% success ratio, which is pretty poor. I think that is the first time in like FPL history where Haaland has blanked 3 times in a row, so we'll see if we need to captain him again this week. Obviously, we're going to do the exact same thing again. We've got predicted points, goal odds, all that jazz, conceded chances and everything to decide if maybe Haaland is the one to go for again. Obviously, they're playing against Southampton this week, or we potentially look at someone else. So let's take a look at the 4 options we've got for game week 9. So I wasn't going to include Salah this week, but I feel like he is just like a mainstay in these videos. I feel like Haaland and Salah are the 2 people that are probably going to be in every single captaincy video this season, despite whoever their opponents are. Obviously, it is debatably the hardest fixture in the league for an attacking player for Salah, so we are still going to look at him just to kind of compare him to everyone else here. So Salah has the away fixture, the only away fixture on this list, against Arsenal, of course. We've also got Erling Haaland, again we just spoke about him, playing against Southampton at home. Our other 2 picks for this week are going to be Cole Palmer and Brian Mbeumo. Now, Palmer's playing up against Newcastle, and Mbeumo has the easiest fixture against Ipswich. So let's take a look at the predicted points. So for our predicted points then, I think we actually have the highest score of the season so far, and that's Erling Haaland on Fantasy Football Hub with 9 expected points against Southampton. I don't think he has reached those heights yet so far. And again, FPL team kind of agreeing with them with a high score of 8.2. By the looks of things, both websites are not backing Salah this week. We have 6.3 points for Fantasy Football Hub and only 4.2, which could actually be like the lowest we've had all season. I don't know if I'd need to have a look again, but I don't know if we've had a lower score than 4.2 so far this season. And considering it's Mohamed Salah, that is a big statement. Cole Palmer, on the other hand, is the one taking second place for our predicted points this week. He has 7.7 for Fantasy Football Hub and 6.8 for FPL team, which again both websites predicting him as second place as the predicted point scores. And Mbeumo's still down there at 6.2 and 5.1. It is kind of hard with these kind of players, unless they're like a huge player like a Haaland, Salah, Palmer. They probably aren't going to have a high predicted points, even if they're in fact fantastic form. And Mbeumo's been scoring in a lot of games recently, but it's just the fact that it's Mbeumo that he doesn't have the same amount of points. If it was Salah, for example, who had the exact same record as Mbeumo over the last 5 games, it would probably be a lot higher. But I think it might just be like a reputation thing. I'm not exactly sure how the predicted points works with that, but still a really nice pick. You can see with Fantasy Football Hub that Mbeumo's basically matching Salah this week with 6.2 points to his 6.3, and our FPL team is actually higher than Salah as well. So if you are a Salah owner this week, I probably would be looking at, well, definitely not captaining him. We will have a look at our other stats and stuff just to do some more comparisons, but off the bat it's not really looking too good for Salah. So stats for this season so far, all 4 of our players are 90-minute men for this week, expected to play the full match, no rests or benchings there. In terms of expected goals, Haaland's actually being caught up now. He's at 6.3, and I think he's been at 6.3 for the last few games. Like, he's not really improved a ton. Obviously he hasn't scored in the last 3 either. We were expecting this kind of like not merging, but his XG to catch up with his goal tally. Wasn't expecting it in this run of games because the run has been great for City and was expecting a lot of goals from him. But I feel like there's definitely something to keep in mind that Kevin De Bruyne's not been in the team. He seems to be struggling without De Bruyne, which is a factor that you are going to have to consider for captaincy over the next few weeks. Because I believe he's back in solo training, but whether he gets into the team anytime soon, still have to wait and see. But Salah and Palmer have both made their way into the 4s for XG, so Salah's basically matching his goals now, and then Palmer is still overperforming a little bit, but Haaland is still the one at the top with 6.3. In terms of expected assists, it is actually Mbeumo who's at the top, despite not having a single assist so far this season. He's got 6 goals, 0 assists, but his expected assists assist is currently at 2. So expecting him to get a couple more assists over the next few weeks to kind of make up for that. He is clearly creating chances, they're just not being finished off by his teammates. Potentially something to look at when Wissa comes back, but I think he's out for the long term. I'm not exactly sure on his return date. But Palmer's not too far behind, Salah's not too far behind either, and they both have very high assist tallies at 5 each. Now in terms of return chances, as Haaland at the top again at 77%, which is absolutely huge. You know, a 77% chance of getting a return this week is very, very high. Followed by Cole Palmer at 69%, and Salah is just edging Mbeumo on this one with 58 over Mbeumo's 55%. So looking at our odds for this week, surprise, surprise, it is Erling Haaland, who is miles at the top. If you want to take a look at the actual stats, looking at the goal chance, Haaland's essentially more than double the chance of scoring than Salah is against Arsenal. Now Salah's actually at the bottom of this list, so again low for the predicted points, and he's at the bottom for goal scoring chances. So Mbeumo's higher than him, Palmer's higher than him as well at 40 and 43%, but Haaland is way at the top at almost 70% chance of getting at least one goal this week. Now looking at the 2 goals, it is a little bit lower than the usual ones, you know, with Mbeumo down at 11, Palmer's only at 13, Salah's down at 7%, which is very low, but Haaland's at 37%, which again, absolutely massive. So there's more chance, this is according to Odds Checker, there's more chance of Haaland scoring 2 goals than Salah scoring 1 goal, which is definitely a very important stat to keep in mind. In terms of opponents' clean sheet odds, again, Southampton very low. Even Ipswich have a pretty decent chance of a clean sheet at 17% against Brentford, Newcastle down at 14%, and then Arsenal actually have a 29% chance of keeping a clean sheet against Liverpool at home. So they're really not expecting a big haul from Salah, but looking at these stats from Haaland is absolutely huge. So looking at the set pieces for this week, this is where our 2 newcomers in Mbeumo and Palmer really take the advantage here. So obviously Palmer's kind of been set in second place over Erling Haaland, or with Erling Haaland in at first. He's obviously on the penalties, but Palmer has the penalties, the free kicks, and he does take some corners as well. So I think it's definitely something to keep in mind if you don't have Haaland in your team, that Palmer's looking like a really nice option this week. Now Mbeumo again is a differential pick potentially. He's got penalties, he's got free kicks, he's got corners, he's got the whole shebang. Definitely something to keep in mind for him. And then again, Salah only on the penalties for Liverpool, so again, even more and more looking like he's at a disadvantage against the other 3. And then even when we look at the rest, again, compared to the likes of Mbeumo and Palmer, Salah has the least rest on there. Obviously Haaland as well, but we'll talk about that in a little minute. So Salah actually played against Leipzig in the Champions League last night, played only 60 minutes, which is something to keep in mind, obviously keeping him fresh for the late game on Sunday. I believe it's the 4:30 kickoff game on Sunday. Now Haaland on the other hand played 80 minutes against Sparta Prague last night, and he is playing on the 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, so he's not getting too much rest again compared to Salah, who was subbed off, played 20 minutes less and gets the extra day. It's definitely probably our first disadvantage to having Haaland this week, you know, only 2 days rest, which is going to obviously play a factor. Now Mbeumo, Palmer both not playing European football. Obviously Chelsea are in the Conference League, but Palmer hasn't been selected for that squad, so he's getting the full week's rest as well before playing against Newcastle also on the Sunday. And Mbeumo obviously plays Ipswich on the Saturday. So for me, I think obviously Haaland's definitely taken the advantage so far with basically everything that we've looked at, but this having the least amount of rest is probably one that he is probably the worst out of the 4. So again, if you've got Palmer, you've got Haaland, you want to go differential, Palmer takes the advantage on this one, and he has just been behind Haaland for essentially everything else that we've looked at. So chances conceded then, let's have a look at each of our players. So Salah's up against Arsenal, the 16th worst defence in the league. So essentially Arsenal are the 5th best defence so far when it comes to expected goals conceded with 9.1. They've only conceded 8 so far this season. Now Haaland and Mbeumo both up against the 2 worst defences in the league so far this season. Both very tight as well. So yes, Mbeumo has the slight advantage playing against a worse defence, but it's only by 0.0 0.01 or 0.1 expected goals conceded. Southampton are 16.8 and Mbeumo is at 16.9, and Southampton have actually conceded more goals at 18 than Ipswich do at 16. So you could actually debate that Southampton are a worse defence than Ipswich are. Now, looking at the chances conceded for Haaland, 68 chances down the middle. I'll look at it in a little minute. We've got our reasoning in just a second, but I believe they're second for chances conceded down the middle, only to Brentford, who've conceded 70, I believe, down the middle. So a huge opportunity for Haaland to do really well here. Now, Palmer's playing against the 11th worst defence in the league. Newcastle have been a little bit more solid. I believe they were in the top 7 a couple of weeks ago. Now they're sitting at 11th with only 11.2 expected goals conceded. But again, similar to Arsenal, they have only conceded 8 goals, so they have been a little bit more solid. But yes, they are still conceding a decent amount of chances down the middle with 53. So they've actually conceded more chances down the middle than Ipswich, who are considered the worst defence in the league. So just something to keep in mind if you're potentially captaining Palmer. So of course we're going for Erling Haaland this week. He has just kind of been clear of everyone else when it comes to all the stats this week. So we've got a reasoning here. He's the highest predicted points on both websites. Both Fantasy Football Hub and FPL Team have him clear of everyone else for predicted points. He's got the highest odds to score 1 and 2 goals, playing against the team with the lowest chance of a clean sheet. Southampton are second for chances conceded centrally. I already mentioned that. Again, only second to Brentford, who have 70 down the middle. Southampton are also second for goals conceded. They've conceded 18 goals, and it is Wolves who are number 1 with 23 goals conceded. So again, something that is definitely going to take a factor into that. And then finally, Southampton have conceded 3 goals in 5 of their last 6 Premier League matches. I think the only game in their last 6 that they didn't concede 3 goals in was the 1-1 draw to Ipswich, I believe. Every other game they've played, they've conceded 3 goals recently. So expecting City to score maybe 3, maybe 4 goals, and if Erling Haaland's not going to be involved in any of them, I would be extremely surprised. So obviously Haaland's looking like the best pick this week, hopefully going to end the 3-game goal drought. However, do you want to triple captain him? Now this is an important thing that I've seen a few people speaking about. Obviously, a lot of us triple captained in game week 2. We recommended on this series to triple captain Haaland in game week 2, where he obviously scored a hat-trick against Ipswich and we got a 51 pointer from him. Now, comparing that game in game week 2, the build up to that game, looking at his odds and his predicted points, we're comparing that to now in game week 9 playing against Southampton. So when he was coming up against Ipswich, Haaland was expected to have 8.7 points on Fantasy Football Hub and then 8.3 on FPL Team. Now looking at that now to game week 9 against Southampton, he's essentially looking like the exact same. He's got a tiny bit more on Fantasy Football Hub and a tiny bit less on FPL Team, but again, you're looking at essentially the same stats. Then we look at the odds down below. He had a 66% chance of scoring a goal and a 33% chance of scoring 2 against Ipswich in game week 2. Now he has a 68% chance of scoring 1 against Southampton and a 37% chance of scoring 2 against Southampton. So he's actually got more chance of scoring against Southampton now than he did in a big popular triple captain week against Ipswich in game week 2. So if you still have that chip and you are looking to use it, I definitely think it could be a really good week for Haaland this week. The only thing that I would consider is that Kevin De Bruyne won't be in the team. He was obviously there for game week 2 when Haaland was scoring a barrel load of goals. Obviously we just spoke about it recently in the video. Haaland has been blanking when De Bruyne hasn't been in the team, so it's up to you. Obviously I imagine if you've kept your triple captain chip now, it's because you're looking towards the double game weeks later on in the season, so it could be a smart move to do so. If De Bruyne was in the team this week against Southampton, I 100% would be saying use that triple captain chip, but that is the only way that I would say potentially leave it until later, is just because De Bruyne isn't there to assist Haaland. Everything else though is favouring the triple captainship for Haaland. So definitely something to keep in mind if you still have it available. I'm going for Haaland just as my regular captain because we used him. We used the triple captain in game week 2. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. We'll be back next week for game week 10, hopefully with another huge haul from Haaland. Make sure to subscribe for this every single week and more FPL content. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.